Hi there. Do you mind if I join you? Yeah, I'm Tom, by the way, and I was one of Joshua's companions. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of him. Yeah. We've met before, haven't we? Haven't we? Oh, maybe not then. Well, if you have heard of me, it's probably by my nickname, Doubter. Yeah, I'm stuck with that for life. Do you know, even as a teenager, my family called me Doubting Tom. Yeah, I questioned everything. Yeah, I learned that from my dad. He never trusted anyone or anything, especially stuff you heard in the news. Yeah, I remember he used to say, if you can't see it for yourself, nor touch it nor feel it, then don't believe it. Yeah, wise man, my dad. Yeah, with a lot of fake news around, you've got to be careful what you sign up to, you know. Anyway, there's more to my story than my doubting nature might suggest. But I was never one of Josh's special followers. No. You know, we were known as the J Team, but I wasn't in the inner circle, if you know what I mean. Not like Pete or Mark or Matt, you know, but I weren't down the bottom list either with that worm Jude. Oh, don't get me started on that bloke. Anyway, so why did I begin to follow Joshua? Well, hard to say really. I was just one of, the many who joined up with him. Now, you might have heard on the news, we were only 12 of us, but as we went round the country, we picked up a few others as well. Some came, some left. Couldn't make the commitment, I suppose. I mean, it was demanding being with Josh. Really demanding, But me, well, I decided to hang in there. I stayed. I never expected Josh to fit me in the way he did. I mean, I was just a small-time jobbing builder, Started off as a carpenter from the East End. I had a small business going up in Colchester, Essex. So working class, I'm a geezer. I was just a nobody. But I was on a downer. Business was in trouble. I owed a bit of money. I had a girlfriend looked like leaving me. News every day was depressing. I was depressed. And there was this sort of hole opening up in my life, and it was getting wider all the time, So, one day, I decided I wanted out. As soon as I could make it happen. So I was out on a job one day in a little town in Suffolk, and I saw this guy talking to the crowds. So I pulled the van over, I got out, and I listened. Boy, did he have a way with words, eh? I thought to myself, wow, this guy is amazing. Now, I've never been one for much God talk, I'll be honest. Okay, I had a bit of religion when I was a kid, didn't we all? But this was different. This guy, Josh, was talking about a God that I could only dare to believe is real. This was a God that was love, A God that could be found and really known in people's lives. And it all made sense. This was a message of deep, caring love and a love for the poor and needy, the like of which I hadn't heard before. And Josh talked about real life, He was inviting us to look again at what was going on around us and look at it in a completely new way. Blew my mind. I mean, I hadn't heard anything like this from any politician or other religious types. And so I decided there and then, chucked in the building lock, and I tagged along. And I did whatever helped Josh to push his worthy cause. Yeah, and my van, came in useful for getting some of us round to rallies, I have to say. Anyway, over the following months, my life changed. I was a different man. I had a real purpose now. I mean, sometimes the going it got tough. But Josh helped me to find something inside me. A courage and a generosity that I never knew I had. I mean, here I was, helping the poor and the needy. Sight of people I'd never given the time of day, but I found I really enjoyed helping them. So because of Josh, I began to understand what real love was about, you know. Then after a couple of years, you know, trying to do good service around the country, turning people's lives around, Josh was starting to get into a lot of trouble with a lot of different people. Oh yeah. I mean, he wasn't warmly welcomed by everybody, I have to say. He ruffled feathers, especially with some of the big shots. I mean, many people saw him as a threat, you know. I mean, Josh started getting death threats. Yeah, no, seriously. And there's a lot of lies, you know, a lot of nasty stuff about him on the internet. I'll tell you, a lot of twisted minds out there. And suddenly, life got a bit dangerous. We had to be on our guard. Big time. You know, I remember the day that Larry died. Larry and his two sisters, Mary and Martha. Yeah, lovely ladies. Different personalities, mine, but terrific people. Salt of the earth, that family. You know, the three of them became dear friends to the team. And we often stayed with them at their home in Bedford. It was a safe place to get away, a place where we could chill, you know, get some peace and rest from our travels. Oh, what that family did for us, eh? You know, we couldn't have asked for better friends. I mean, not only did they feed us and entertain us, you know, they were also prepared to pretty much put their lives on the line for Josh. And they did. I'll tell you, they took some real risks by having us in their home. And then one day, completely out of the blue, Josh got a phone message that Larry had died. Oh, a real shock that was, I can tell you. What a shock. But we was on the road and way up north, so we couldn't do much about it at the time. So, you know, we just cracked on with our good work. Then one night, over a pub dinner, Josh suddenly announced that we were heading back to Bedford. Oh, he said something about Larry's being asleep, you know, and that he was going to awaken him. Well, I thought it was just a beer talking, you know. And I didn't know what he meant by that. Well, none of us did, to be honest. But what we did know was that would be a blooming dangerous place to go back to. I said, you know, we couldn't go back there, Bedford. Not because of Larry, of course. The real worry was that it turned out Josh was in real hot water with the authorities there. Well, everywhere, to be quite honest. You know, the police, wacky cults, fringe faith groups, even the secret services, you name it. They were on his tail. It was going to be bad news if we went back to Bedford. And we could have been walking into a trap. But I'll tell you, some of those guys were ready to take him down. They really had it in for him. Well, the lads in the team thought he was bonkers. And I remember Pete had a right go at Josh. He told him straight, the last time we were there, a mob nearly beat you up. You see the latest threats on social media. Are you seriously telling us you want to go there again? You know, but as always, Josh just gave us that look. Inscrutable, John used to call it. And he started ravaging on about Larry again and about walking in the light and not hesitating. Well, I'll tell you what, it was Josh's words that finally nailed it for me. You know, I felt a courage welling up inside me. And by that time, I'd stopped listening to the others. And I just thought, what have we got to lose, eh? What have we got to lose? I mean, let's face it, we left everything behind already. So it was crunch time, you know. We were either with him or we was against him. Now, for all I know, you know, we were all going to go down with Josh and maybe face arrest. But I was all set to put everything I had right on the line for him. Oh, no. Don't call me an hero. No. I don't really do brave. Hot-headed's more like it. So I was all pumped up, I just came out with what was going in my heart, So I said, let's do it. That we may be at his side. If he goes down, we'll all go down with him. If necessary, we'll die with him. If we have to, we'll die with him. I can't believe I said that. Oh, me and my big mouth. Little did I know at that moment that what I said was anything more than some casual comment off the top of my stupid head. I mean, what would I know about dying, eh? I mean, Josh often talked about his death. And I have to say, made us feel very uneasy. I mean, none of us understood why he talked like this, and if I'm honest, I didn't want to know. But what I can say is that Josh seemed to, he had no fear, He wasn't afraid of death at all. Cool as a cucumber was our Josh. Well, as it turned out, they didn't get him in Bedford, but they caught up with him in London. And they caught him all because of one of us. And it shames me to say it, but it was that Jude of all people. I always had my suspicions about him, But at the time, I thought he was vermin. Now I think, well, maybe he's just a pathetic, well-meaning fool, But he snitched on Josh. He turned informer. And we heard he'd done a deal and got paid. Blood money, that's what it was. Well, I guess they would have caught up with Josh anyway, Papers were saying that one sinister group had some kind of bounty on his head. And there are a lot of people who, don't give him anything they could to have him silenced for good. Well, they'd have done anything to stop him from teaching about the new vision. The realm of God, Josh called it. All the religious authorities were getting a right 2 and 8. They thought he was out to form some kind of new movement. I mean, Josh's message was just too much for him, I mean, he quickly made enemies when he started challenging them for being hypocrites. He named and shamed. He challenged people for their corruption, deceit and greed. Yeah, I mean, he got heavy sometimes, really heavy, I can tell you. I mean, he was trying to break down barriers between people, trying to set them free from themselves. And Josh was calling for change, and they didn't like it. Well, no one likes change, do they, when they're all set in their ways. But when he started putting all these ideas in their heads, saying ordinary people would be like royalty in the new realm, well, he was saying to them that they was actually blessed in their suffering. Yeah, I mean, Josh was sorting people's heads out and getting them to hope for something better, to look for a new kind of world. Yeah, I remember him saying, it's the way we live that matters. But they just couldn't get their heads around him, And they just could not leave him alone. And I remember back to when we was all in a van heading down to London. I felt sick in my stomach. And I thought, this is not going to end well. Well, it all happened in London. I'll spare you the gory details. I mean, you might know them anyway. If you don't, well, you can find plenty about it on the web. There was a betrayal. There was an arrest. There was a ridiculous court hearing. And after Josh was let out on bail, he was hounded and beaten up. I mean, later he was dragged by a vicious mob and he was shot to death. And then his body was mysteriously taken away. Yet no, they haven't found out who pulled the trigger. And after all that, well, my dreams just turned to dust, you know. I mean, that fateful night, I felt like a man who'd been hollowed out. I mean, for the next few days, I was beyond grief. I was a mess. I was a broken man. And then I began to question the last 3 years. I mean, what had it been all about, eh? You know, what was it all for? I mean, maybe Josh had deluded us. Maybe he was a sham. But you know, part of me still wanted to believe it. I wanted to hold on to all the things he'd said and stood for. Then the horror of his death would come rushing back into my head. You know, the thought that I would never hear him speak again, never laugh with him or have a meal and a beer with him. I mean, I was seriously in shock. But deep inside, I still wanted to have a loving purpose. I wanted to live for something worthwhile, you know? I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Eh? But I know, you know, I wanted to live like he was still part of my life. Like he was still alive and walking alongside me, you know? I mean, the team began to break up and go our separate ways, but after Josh died, we all kept our heads down and none of us would ever admit to knowing him. We knew that some people were out to get his team, us. And all that stuff I said about being prepared to die with him, oh, it just filled me with shame, you know. And then I started to feel scared. I was afraid, really afraid. I felt I just couldn't trust anyone, you know, not even among the group, wherever they were. I mean, you know, who knows who might have been the next Jude? Anyway, for the next few days I stayed in a pokey cheap hotel in Earls Court. Then a couple of fellas found me, traced me on my iPhone apparently. I can't say I was particularly pleased to see them. In fact, I actually told them to clear off. I need to be alone, you know, just to get my head sorted out. Then one of them came over to me and he said, "We've seen Josh." I laughed. Of course I didn't believe them. I didn't trust this lot anymore. "No way," I said. "No way. I don't believe you. Why are you winding me up like this? You know, why are you trying to mess up my head as if I'm not screwed up enough already?" Anyway, I calmed down a bit and I said, "You're going to have to show me proof." And I could hear my dad's wise words, you know. "I want to stand in front of him. I want to shake his hands. I want to see and touch his wounds. That's the sort of proof you're going to have to give me. Are you Crystal? So show me Josh. Go on. But if I find this is just some sick joke and you're having a giraffe at my expense, I'm off and you'll never see me again. Now get out of here." Oh, I told him all right. I told him. In the next few days, nothing much happened. Forgot all about it, if I'm honest. I just wandered the streets and hung about in cafes, you know, but slowly I began to get my head sorted. I thought, maybe I'll go back to Colchester, you know, be with family and friends, pick up the pieces again, try and make a new start. Then one morning, I was sitting having a sarnie and I got a text from one of the guys inviting me to come over that night. He thought it might be a last opportunity, you know, get together for a few drinks. So I thought, yeah, well, you know, if this is the end of the team, we might as well try and part on good terms. So I went off to this dingy little flat in Camden Town. We was all sitting around, sipping our beers, and then it happened. A door opened and Josh walked in. I mean, there he was, standing there with us, large as life. I mean, my head was all over the place, pounding and spinning. I couldn't take this in. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Well, I guess someone must have tipped him off about what I said to the lads earlier, because he came right up to me, put out a hand. I was trembling, I can tell you, and I held his hand. Then he pulled open his shirt, and I stepped back in disgust. I mean, there was deep cuts and bruises, and there were the bullet wounds, and he placed my finger on the worst wound on his chest. Well, nobody could have survived that. Then he embraced me, and I felt his arms around me. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say a word. I just couldn't find the words. Then I looked him in the eyes, and all I could eventually say was, "Josh, my friend, my teacher." And Josh finally spoke, and he said, "Okay, so you believe because you have seen me, right?" Then he turned to the others and he said, "Just think how blessed are those people who haven't seen me as you have, but still find that and believe." All sounds crazy, doesn't it? But I wish you guys could have been there with me. Even now, I think, I don't know what world I was in that night. Seeing those wounds, hearing those words, seeing Josh like that has changed me and my life forever. Yeah, I know we can't turn the clock back to that moment. But you don't have to. Not to believe like I do now. The new life he gave me can be just as real for you. All right? So you might not have seen like I did, but you can still come to believe. The fact is, the spirit of Josh is with you even now. Because we're all children of one God. Cheers.